The human brain is hardwired to despise uncertainty. When starved of information, people will manufacture horror stories to fill the void. Unskilled negotiators leak their intent through quick reactions and desperate explanations. Master strategists weaponize silence and ambiguity to make the opponent fight their own imagination. Strategic ambiguity is the art of maintaining absolute operational opacity. In this masterclass, discover how to construct information voids, deploy weaponized silence, force self-induced friction, and compel your opponent to collapse under their own unforced errors. The information void is the deliberate withholding of your strategic intent, motives, and final boundaries. By keeping your position completely opaque, you deny the opponent a firm surface to strike against. While an amateur rushes to clarify their stance out of a fear of being misunderstood, a master strategist embraces the quiet power of unreadability. The opponent, desperate to decipher your next move, begins analyzing every minor gesture and word for hidden meanings. Predictability is the prerequisite for defeat. When an opponent can categorize your behavioral pattern, they can construct an optimized counter-strategy. The unpredictable stance involves systematically breaking expected routines, emotional responses, and negotiation templates. If the room expects anger, you respond with cold amusement. If they expect a rapid counteroffer, you offer complete detachment. By constantly shifting your operational cadence without explanation, you deny the opponent a stable reference point. Forced to operate in a perpetual state of guesswork, their strategic discipline evaporates, causing them to hesitate, second-guess their instincts, and abandon well-prepared offensive frameworks out of sheer confusion. Fighting a visible enemy requires energy, but fighting a phantom enemy drains life force entirely. Self-induced friction occurs when an opponent exhausts their strategic reserves, defending against threats that exist only in their mind by dropping subtle, ambiguous signals without explicitly declaring a move you never intended to execute. While you remain completely stationary and conserve your strength, the opponent wears themselves out shadowboxing in the dark. By the time the actual negotiation reaches a critical junction, their cognitive and strategic resources are entirely spent on phantom battles. In high-stakes communication, silence is commonly misconstrued as an empty space, whereas it is actually a high-pressure psychological vacuum. Strategic silence is the deliberate deployment of long, unyielding pauses following a critical statement or proposal. Most people experience intense anxiety during social silence and will say almost anything to break the tension. When an opponent delivers a demand and you respond with absolute silence and steady eye contact, the burden of proof shifts instantly back to them. Overwhelmed by the pressure to resolve the awkwardness, the opponent inevitably begins over-explaining, qualifying their statements, and lowering their expectations. By simply holding your tongue, you force the opponent to leak vital intelligence and negotiate directly against themselves. When an opponent knows your exact strength, they can calculate the precise force required to overcome you. When your full power is hidden, every minor action you take carries disproportionate weight. A simple refusal is interpreted as backing from a shadow power. A brief delay is misconstrued as a sophisticated trap being set. By refusing to show your hand, you allow the opponent's overactive imagination to magnify your status and resources far beyond reality. You command immense respect and leverage not through loud displays of authority, but through the formidable shadow cast by the unknown. The ultimate evolution of strategic ambiguity is inducing a psychological state where the opponent initiates their own surrender to escape the torture of uncertainty. The phantom lock occurs when the psychological pressure of the unknown becomes so unbearable that capitulation feels like a relief. When faced with a clear threat, humans gather courage and prepare for battle. But when faced with an unreadable, silent entity whose motives and timeline remain entirely concealed, courage turns into chronic exhaustion. The opponent lies awake at night, analyzing endless possibilities, trapped in an endless loop of strategic paralysis. Eventually, the desire for closure overrides their drive for victory. They will walk into your office and present a deal heavily slanted in your favor, not because you forced them at gunpoint, but because securing certainty on your terms is less painful than enduring the agonizing vacuum of the unknown. By executing the phantom lock, you win the war without firing a single shot. You never made a threat, never made an aggressive demand, and never revealed your positioning. You simply held your ground in the shadows, allowing the opponent's fear of what might happen to drive them straight into absolute compliance. This is the pinnacle of stealth dominance.